The biggest breakthrough that I've seen in the last 35 years is in testing. The real breakthrough for that has been artificial intelligence. Most of the people who are going to use the breakthroughs are men, which is funny because women have different kinds of problems. And it's been more lucrative for the medical industry to ignore those. They have different kinds of problems and they have more kinds of problems, but they tend to live longer. So put those two together.
Doctors who are sick of the system, that who are the best ones already have left traditional medicine and have gone to a cash pay integrative approach, just like Dr. David Hazy, and in this case, Dr. Angela Bookout, Reagan Archibald for him, and Dr. Tracy Gappen. These are some examples.
Why are you ambitious at 80? Why are you ambitious at 80? Because I'm more ambitious at 80 than I was at 50. I said, because I've discovered that my only ambition is to be more ambitious.
Well, this episode, Dan, is really talking about women's struggles in business as entrepreneurs, but also health. And my goal is to get your perspective in all the years that you've been a coach, because there are women inside Strategic Coach. You've seen a shift of progress as both entrepreneurs, but also because you've been really focusing on health and longevity now for decades, actively involved, doing it, working on it. I wanted to do the crossover here and talk about what the opportunities are, what the challenges are for women, crossing over between entrepreneurialism, longevity, medicine, but also we're entering a new era with the new administration. And I think there's an interesting Venn sweet spot that combines all those. And my first question is, why don't you give me your sense and your take on where all these worlds are colliding, and then we'll maybe take a historical journey through how you see the trends and how they're evolving and what they're evolving to.
Yeah, well, the first factor I'll start with is just my teaming up with Babs Smith, who's my my business partner, but marriage partner, and that's mid 80s. We met in 82. We got married in 86. We started working together. She had her own business and she wound that down, and then she joined. We literally created Strategic Coach. It was just me out there doing interesting one-on-one consulting for 15 years. And I'd really narrowed things down. I had thinking tools. I had a target market that I was going after. And she just felt that would be a lot more fun. She was in nutrition as one of her fields. She was a top-notch massage therapist for very interesting for stunt people, for people who were stunt people in the movies, and for airline crews, high stress, very high stress.
Yeah.
And the other one was ballet, people who are in ballet. And so she had a lot of female clients. And those occupations, airline being a crew on an airliner, and ballet and stunt people, they put unnaturally great stress on their body, and they live under stressful deadlines and stressful conditions. But she had reached the point where there was no higher level that she could go to. She could do this for the rest of her life. She could make a good living at it, and she had great freedom of time and everything else. But there wasn't any multiplier in the business, and she could see right off the bat that with tools like the strategy circle, you could actually multiply. And the big multiplication, of course, was going from one-on-one coaching to workshop coaching. And and I met her, and I wasn't very good with my health. I had just turned 40, and I ate junk. Drank a lot. Didn't exercise very much. Um, Saw a doctor under duress every couple of years, and and had a lot of injuries in my 1970s. And so anyway, right off the bat, I started getting healthier, and Babs got healthier too. And I would say since 1987, we probably spent 3 million just
Mhm.
investing different things. Some of them worked, some of them didn't work, a lot of them didn't work, but you were learning some things over that period. And in 1987, I established a goal of living to 156. And long story about that, which I think we've talked about on previous podcasts.
Mhm.
But anyway, so now I'm 80, and I would say if you measured me in every way that you could have measured me in 1987, I'm fitter, I'm healthier, I'm more energized, and easier to live with, easier to work with, and
Yep.
everything. But I'll just sum up what I've discovered. And because I was on a podcast yesterday, I sort of summarize this in my mind. The biggest breakthrough that I've seen in the last 35 years is in testing. Okay. And uh, and the real breakthrough for that has been artificial intelligence. Okay. And
Mhm.
that the speed with which they can go deeper and go broader with AI is it's as great as anything that's happened in technology since the 1980s. And so that's really the great breakthrough. So my rule number one is test, 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 test. That not necessarily in that order. And the what they can discover if you systematically and regularly get tested, is phenomenal. How much you can get ahead of the game with your health and your fitness.
That's that I couldn't agree with more. And you're doing quarterly blood, right? Is that your, or do you do it more frequently than that?
Now, complete. Complete. This is True Diagnostic mainly. It's True
Hmm.
Diagnostic. They're the ones who have the regenerative medicine Olympics. Brian Johnson, I think, is the
Yeah.
check writer for that.
Hmm.
And yeah, there's a complete panel, Cleveland Clinic, and then there's some specialized labs that goes out. Well, they take this is in Maxwell Clinic, and David Hasse, good friend of yours, good friend of mine.
Yep.
David's clinic, I think I count the vials when they're taking it out of me. I think a month ago it was 28 vials, and those vials go out to different um,
Yes.
different different people. And then we get a complete blood bank. And I do that every 90 days because changes can happen in 90 days.
Yes.
And, and that becomes the basis for all diagnosis. That becomes the basis for all recommendations, changes in protocol. It is testing. But the big
Yes.
thing is the testing of how you are, but there's the testing of new stuff. And they can do 10,000 lab tests now using AI that previously would have taken one person most of a day to do the experimenting, do the innovation. So that's been the huge thing. And the medical establishment is, I would say that the general medical establishment in Canada and the United States, where we mostly operate, I would say right now it's about 30 years behind the testing.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
So
I
if
get
you
that.
want to get up to date, don't be asking, well, what medicine should I be taking? What procedure should I be going through and everything else? Bring yourself up to 2024 with testing.
Yes. Well, and I would add to that what I've seen. There's a doc we've been working with. His name's Dr. Tracy Gappin. He's in Florida, and he does 500 blood markers, 768,000 genetic markers, full body. And then part of his process after that is he outfits his patients with wearables, a whole collection, and onboards the wearables. Then he's got software that's tracking all this in near real time. you and your team can monitor this through a dashboard, and then they're making adjustments in your real time in your nutrition, supplementation, hormones, et cetera, et cetera. And that clearly is, the next wave combined with AI. So, that's is close to with all the wearables we have. It's pretty exciting. But let's bring this back a little bit to the Babs experience, because I want to go down and talk a little bit about women. And the reason we chose to focus on women today is you've seen a huge change in culture, politics, business, women being involved as entrepreneurs, and there's more and more women in strategic coach. And they're a certain type or breed, but you've also had your own personal laboratory, which is Babs, both as life partner and as business partner. And she's going through her progression in life. I want to touch a little bit about, and I don't whether you want to speak specifically about Babs or not, but inside of that 35-year period of time, let's talk about women and health and entrepreneurs and entrepreneurialism. Just take us on a little journey of your biggest observations that have led us to now. And I think we'll extend this and talk about your future vision and your future sense of what's happening with all the above.
Yeah, I would
That's a big
say that.
question. It's a big
Yeah,
question.
yeah, I would say, and here I'm relying a lot on material that comes out of Peter Diamandis's
Hmm.
uh, longevity trips, and and the fact is that research, which is specifically um, focused on women's health,
Hmm.
is about 1% of all the money that's spent on research. Okay, it's about 1%. Okay, and which is strange. It's not strange in one way, is that it's easier to deal with men's health. The other thing
Hmm.
is the researchers are men, and most of the people who are going to use the breakthroughs are men. Which is funny because women they have different kinds of problems. Okay, I don't know if they have more problems, but they have different kinds of problems, and it's been more lucrative for the medical industry to ignore those than it has been to really focus on them. Okay, they have different kinds of problems and they have more kinds of problems, but they tend to live longer. So put those two together.
Hmm.
And the reason is that women have other factors, mostly relationship factors, um, which motivate them to stay healthy and live longer. And that is that their support networks tend to be much more diversified and expansive than men's. For most men, and I'm not talking about necessarily entrepreneurs, I'm just talking about men in the workforce, is that men, their entire support structure for most of their life outside of their home is the work that they do and the job that they do.
Hmm.
But then they're encouraged to think about retirement as fast as they can. And the moment that they retire, 90% of their outside the home support structure disappears. They no longer have a focused purpose. They no longer have a team. They no longer have challenges to overcome. And I would say that a man who's been very busy, very successful all his life, but decides to retire, let's say 60 or 65, um, uh, within 2.5 to 3 years after retirement day, he's just in the departure lounge getting ready to die.
Hmm.
So women, on the other hand, have all sorts of friends. They have all sorts. They're the ones who hold families together. They're the ones that, extended families. Women hold those things together, and they involve themselves more in philanthropic activities. Um, they just have far more support structure, relationships that mean a lot to them and relationships in which they're seen very valuable and powerful. And even though their medical care is worse, their social structure is better for their health.
That is such an important distinction. So let's go down the path a little bit. I'm going to take us down a rabbit hole modifier because as I showed you a little while ago, I've been working with this woman, Dr. Angela Bookout, who has been in basically in the skin cancer business for a long time, but due to a whole number of reasons, she's seen uh, uh, a big progression with the number of people she sees with skin cancer. Like skin cancers are increasing. Other cancers, I looked up a bunch of data, and there are some that are increasing, like colorectal cancer, other that are lowering per year. So we're making progress with what would be considered big pharma, big medicine, and the level of care um, and that sort of thing. The but is she's seeing an increase, and which her perspective is we're dying from the inside out, combination of toxicity, lifestyle. We could also say emotions. You know, she said a lot of these people, what she can tell for sure is they have unhealthy brains in the way they and they
Mhm.
say, well, I'm taking care of myself, I'm eating healthy, but one thing that happens is the cancers keep on coming back, sometimes at a rate of every month something new shows up. And a lot of the people she works on, of course, are older. But she's just decided she's going to do something about it and work from the inside out and try to prevent it from happening in the first place. If your immune system is strong, cancer isn't present. If it's doing its job, something's triggering it. The body's responding. So one thing that because she's focused entirely on women, the hook she's angling for is to start with beauty, because that's the business she's been in a long time, keeping you look good. But she said, I can't tell you over the past 15 years how many beautiful women I am working on. They're rotten on the inside and they're rotting on the inside and dying. And there's, you just can't keep the chase up. But they also seek some level of harmony in their life, which I think is echoed and reflected in some of what you were talking about, of like the fact that there's a support network, the amount of money that's going in. My intuition says, okay, there's a pony in there. And
Mhm.
then finally, being able to do it and have fun, because health, you know how to make health fun for you because it's so much of your business, it's part of your messaging, you're engaged in it, plus you've got a lot to win by staying alive to 156. But for a lot of folks, like the Brian Johnson protocol, for example, I'm going to pick on him. um, he's made huge investments, he is 100% all in, and I look at him and I'm like, there's no way that guy's life looks like fun, because he is a machine, a health machine, and he's a living rodent. And I'd say most people will quit if there isn't a fun factor. They feel like they have to give up a bunch of things before they're feeling the rewards. Somehow you got to get the flywheel spinning around. So I just said a lot of stuff.
Yeah, well,
I'd
I
love
think
your synthesis of all these.
I think one of the factors that kind of connects everything that you've talked about is just that too many people spend too much time in the sun
Yeah.
unprotected. And if you probably know more about this than I do, but I think that of all the cancers, the fastest killer is skin cancer.
Oh, hell yeah.
I mean, you could go from just having something on your back, that looks weird in the mirror in the morning, that you say, it's just, it's just some sort of, maybe too much sun, but it's actually cancer. And the moment it goes, the moment that skin cancer goes down, a eighth of an inch or so, it just spreads like this throughout the entire body. I mean, that's what melanoma is, and it
Yeah.
kills you like that. But I think that there was a long tradition, and I still think we're in it, of people getting as much sun as they possibly can. And I go to a dermatologist every year, and he said, your skin is really, really great. You know, I'm 80 now. And he says, usually, he says, there's vastly more, discoloration and damaged skin that I have. And he said, "So what's your approach been?" I said, "It's called the shade. I always stay in the shade." I always like having something between me and the sun
Mm,
and everything. But
mm,
let's go back to her comment of beauty from the inside out. And, I mean, um, I just think that there's so much uh, philosophical wisdom about that is that if you're ugly on the inside, and you have negative emotions, you have negative thoughts, you have a poor assessment of yourself, you don't see yourself growing. Um, it's pretty soon it's going to show up on the outside. It's going to show up. So I think that. And the other thing about that, and this is where I really totally buy into David Hasse and his approach at Maxwell Clinic. He said, what we have to do is you have to optimize your health to deal with, you have to optimize what's good with you to deal with what's bad with you. So his whole approach, and he used plasma exchange. That's
hmm.
a, and this is a new field. I mean, it's done in a lot of different places, but David's one of the people in the world who's probably taken it the fastest, and
Yes.
has to do with your blood, has to do with your blood. So every quarter, we were just there a month ago in Nashville, and on a Monday and a Wednesday, all a Monday, a Tuesday and a Thursday, actually Tuesday and a Thursday, we have IVs in both arms. We're in a sort of
Hmm.
reclining chair, and all the blood in our body, 70% goes out, and it's
Yep.
gone through a centrifuge that takes out the plasma in the blood and it puts new albumin back into the blood with, minerals. And you do that on a Tuesday, that's 70%. And then on the Thursday, you do it again and it takes 70% of the remaining 30%. So you
Right.
basically 98% of your blood is cleaned, you know, and it takes out everything that's dead cells or, just crud, basically. It's like an oil change. And we do that 4 times a year, twice, so twice per trip and then 4 times per year. And David can just show me what's improved just because of that exercise. Now that's not widely available, but in 5 years,
Yeah.
10 years, it will be widely available.
So two,
The
oh,
big
go, I was,
question,
yeah, go
the
ahead. Sorry.
big question underlying this is, do you have a reason to live longer than you are so far? Do you actually have a reason to live longer? Because a lot of people are just living because it's a habit.
That's awesome. Um, and
Ever since they were born, they've been living and they got into the habit of always being alive tomorrow, but they don't actually have any reason to do it.
that is, okay, I've got something I'm going to show you in a moment, but first I also want to tell you a story. So I told you about this Dr. Angela Bookout. Her motivation to get on this path came from being with Dr. David Hazy. She
Oh,
found out about him, went to the clinic, and had a profound shift in her quality of blood work because what she was able to uncover in her own body, even though she's an ultra high performer, has been exceptionally profitable practice. Just operationally, she's amazing. But she learned that she had, and I wish I could, I don't remember the exact thing, but we called glyphosates and all these fertilizers or pesticides, et cetera, have a cumulative toxic effect on us. There's actually a fundamental something lower down in the food chain than that remains that's hard to detect that they were able to determine. And she's been going through a massive detox process because of Dr. Hazi's work. So it's interesting how this comes back around and somehow through the rabbit trail, that's how she discovered me as well. But you talked about having a reason to live. And I want to show you something from the slideshow And I'll give credit where credit's due. First, which is this what I'm about to show you is a based on a tool that Tony Robbins used. It's called Bend Wimp, but I'm going to show you on the screen this thing because it's I had forgotten about it till last night, and we were trying to dig down as we've been brand building and we're using AI and grabbing data, and finally what we did is I said, okay, what's motivating these women? But also Tony's thing, it's B, so it's believe, evaluate, need, desire, wounds, interests, mentors, proud of people and things. His model of the world revolves around this sort of like a diagnostic tool. And interestingly, it's like, what do you desire? So getting back to what's your reason to live? And when you talk about how men retire and suddenly have no purpose, well, they're on the pathway to death. Women have community. Even though 1% of the medical investment is going to their focus, that I've never heard that before, but it's like, bam. But the desire from her lens is to be valuable, useful, and needed. And I want to just go there for a moment, Dan. When you, first of all, when you look at this and synthesize it yourself, this Bend Wimp, and if you go back to what you just said about beauty, usefulness, purpose, having a reason to live, I not only want to get your reflection, but I also want to know when you've got to create leverage, as a coach, a 35-year coach, which ultimately you always talk about how important it is to maintain entrepreneurial confidence. I'll have to say for me, I didn't really understand or grok how unbelievably profound that one thing is. So there's confidence, purpose, a reason why. I think there's a synthesis of genius in there. I just would love you to explore it a little bit.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was talking with clients, not in the free zone, our third level, but in actually they were at the signature level, and they said, "Could you answer me a question? Why are you ambitious at 80? Why are you ambitious at 80? Because I'm more ambitious at 80 than I was at 50." Um,
Mm.
and I said, because I've discovered that my only ambition is to be more ambitious.
That's so big. Well, decode that a little bit and tie
Well,
it back to this thing, because that's like, is that, well, obviously staying healthy, being feeling good
well,
about yourself,
yeah,
having
well,
energy and power, but
yeah, well, I think this is a bit of mind transforming matter here. In other words, that they said, well, you think about you're at 80, you think about 90. And I said, so what's your goal for 90? I said, I'm more ambitious at 90 than I am at 80. And you work out the logic of that. You work out the logic of that. That means my capabilities have to be higher. My teamwork inside our company has to be greater. The creativity has to be greater. The productivity has to be greater. The profitability has to be greater. And my collaborations outside the company, including with you, have to be greater 10 years from now than they are. And I can work on
Mhm.
that. And I can work on that every day, you know. Um, Podcast by podcast, our podcasts are a lot better now than they when we started.
Yeah.
We're doing much better podcasts.
Welcome to the world of 3-second attention spans and fewer than 20 seconds to get a prospect's attention, engage them, get to know, like, and trust you, and say, I want and need what you have. Let's make a deal. Now, introducing Digital Cafe AI, a relationship building AI that will take your hard earned leads and make them feel like you're sitting down with them for a cup of coffee, listening to their needs and responding to them with a personalized, useful, resourceful solution. It's the perfect AI team. A Digital Cafe AI does hours or days of work that normally requires an expensive team of specialists in minutes. It's the fastest, easiest, automated way to get attention, engagement, and trust to close bigger deals faster. A Digital Cafe AI is a done for you service that can be adapted to any B2B or B2C business. Money loves speed, and time kills deals. So visit Digital Cafe AI to see how it will work for you.
And so the big thing is to always be more ambitious. Okay. And they said, well, ambitious about what? And I says, whatever it happens to be at the time. And so what that prompts me to do is let's make sure you have the health and energy to support being more ambitious in the future. So I've got it down to almost a Euclidean, formula. It's just that if you know me 10 years from now, you're meeting someone who's more ambitious than he is now.
Yes.
Now that thought in itself has a great impact on your health. Okay, I sleep properly. If I'm off, I make some adjustments. My diet is incredibly better this year because Babs and I discovered steak.
Yes.
Steak.
Do you I'll go one tiny thing. I have to tell you something so profound, which has affected all these for me. So I've been officially, as of right now, on almost a pure carnivore diet for this is my ninth month, which means if I'm controlling my diet, which you can't always do it on the road, and I'm not absolutely insane. Like if I'm on the road, I'm gonna eat some fish and stuff like that. But I've been eating organic grass-fed steak. I've gone as long as 2 weeks eating nothing else. So it's steak and water. Um, and what's profound, and if you look at my face now, I'm more cut, have a lower body fat, and practically no inflammation. And my blood results, I went down 20% in bad cholesterol in 1 month when I did this. But here's the most profound thing of all. Um, I have no cravings.
Yeah.
So no desire to, I've dropped my alcohol consumption down to practically zero. When we ate steak not too long ago, a few weeks ago, I drank
Except when
wine with
you're with
you.
me. Except when you're
That
with
is
me.
true. I'm like, it's because it transforms into holy water when we're
Yeah.
drinking it together because we're imagining so much.
Yeah.
But really, I just haven't had I came from a drinking environment starting at 18, so that's a big shift. But I can be next to food and even the smell, I'll know instantly if it will impact me or if I'll have a reaction if I don't follow that sense. So basically, I just have learned about what my what sensitivities are. Like
Mhm.
I just intuitively know, and also energy, brain activity, uh, all of it. It is a profound shift. And if you would have told me this 1 year ago, and I heard people talk about it 1 year ago, I'm like, it's completely insane. There's no way that works.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
the
won't say it for everyone, but yeah.
the influence in this for me was Dean Jackson. And Dean's on
Oh yeah.
purely almost a carnivore diet, and he got all his wisdom from JJ Virgin, and he had to report in every day and everything.
Yes.
But it sure makes life simpler. What are we having for dinner? Steak. What are we having
Yep.
for breakfast? Steak. What are we having for lunch? Steak. And what I found is uh, our food bill is maybe more expensive, but it's sure a lot easier to shop.
And the prep and consumption, like I'm not eating particularly fast, but that steaks down in about 10, 12 minutes versus an hour that I'd normally take. There's no stacking, no pre, and there's no downtime.
Yeah.
So I can eat before I work out. My gut doesn't react. I have no gut downtime. That cuts in. It's literally given me 2 hours extra a day
Yeah.
of life and energy, and staying away from the bathroom, etc. There's a result.
Mhm.
At least for me, speaking for myself, I've lived with some variation of basically gut IBS issues before and after cancer. Um, that always takes my energy and slows me down. I don't have it any longer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So, I
that is
mean, this is
profound.
one
So back on
aspect.
track. Yeah.
This is one aspect, I mean, the prevailing philosophy was a balanced diet, and you had the pyramid, you had the pyramid of foods. And, I haven't been on it 9 months, but I've been on it 5 months. Okay. And I'm down 18 pounds,
Oh yeah.
and it's fortunate because I had a photo shoot yesterday, and I said, I'm glad this didn't happen 5 months ago.
Yeah.
No, I look better. I look
Yeah, you
better.
do. No, I was looking at Genius Network. I'm like, yep, that guy is looking better. It's the big thing is it's inflammation.
Yeah.
Facial inflammation and the shredding, effortless shredding of body fat is and also just the lean side of things. So
Yeah, you
well,
feel good. Yeah.
yep,
I had
it's
about,
awesome.
I had acquired a pretty expensive wardrobe over the last 20 years. uh, 90% of which was pretty worthless to me because I couldn't fit into it anymore. And I
Uh,
said, these are great clothes. I mean, really well-tailored suits for men will last 25, 30 years, even longer if you have 20 of them. And, so the big thing is that I remember when I went on Peter Diamandis's first longevity trip, and this was Boston, New Jersey, and New York. And
hmm.
we went to clinics, and we had scientists come in and innovators come in. And Richard Rossi was on the trip with me, and I said, what we're exploring on this 6 day trip is going to be the center of the U.S. economy over the next 50 years.
Oh,
Regenerative medicine is going to be at the very center of the U.S. economy
mm,
over the next 50 years. And the reason is that the payoff for regenerative medicine, everybody wants.
yeah, yeah. And we've got if I circle back, and we're going to do a different episode to go down this particular rabbit hole, but I think what we have as of this new election and the new administration, assuming things stay on track, and but with RFK in a position leading a teardown of overly restrictive organizations in healthcare that are including with one another and have been, we all know it, um, making way for integrative therapies, removing FDA and big drug companies, what they're doing with peptides and a lot of these tools. And, they're basically shutting down um, compounding pharmacies. Big pharma is trying to patent every peptide they can and make it impossible or difficult. The fact that that kind of thing is going to be examined very closely, the opportunities for regenerative businesses and doctors who are sick of the system that who are the best ones already have left traditional medicine and have gone to a cash pay
Yeah.
integrative approach, just like Dr. David Hazy and in this case Dr. Angela Bookout, Reagan Archibald for him and Dr. Tracy Gappen, these are some examples in my immediate
Our,
purview,
our,
but
our,
yeah,
our great doctor in Buenos Aires, Dr. Movilia,
totally.
who's I mean, he's letting paralyzed people walk again. He's allowing people, their immune system was on heading toward the cliff, and now they have a stronger immune system. So there's all
Yes.
sorts of great things happening in the world. There is no center to this. The thing that defeats people. Well, where's the center I can go to? Well, I just get everything I need. And I said it doesn't exist because new things are being invented.
Mm-hmm.
And things are never invented just in one place. They have to be invented in 1,000 places. And then the people talk to each other and create further inventions. But this is an odd thought that I'm going to throw
Yep.
into the biggest
Okay.
problem, the biggest problem that I see, and this is in the two most expensive parts of the US economy. And these are the only two parts of the US economy where things haven't gotten cheaper with technological breakthroughs. And one of them is education, and the other one is health. They
Yeah.
keep getting more expensive. They keep getting, but the technology keeps getting better and better. I don't know if that's true in the educational realm, but it's certainly better in the
Yeah.
medical field. And the reason is we have belief in systems, and we
Hmm.
think such a thing as the educational system. And I said, there is no such thing as the educational system. There's this
Hmm.
school, great principal, great teachers, great parents sending their great kids to the school. That's a great educational system. It doesn't expand beyond that school.
Yeah.
And for everything good I just said there, I can say something bad about another school, bad principal, bad teachers, bad parents, and bad, not bad intentionally, but just bad because they're ignorant.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
you have a lot of really good people, well-meaning people, dedicated people living in really bad systems.
Yes. Yeah. I think those are back to a toxic environment for
Yeah.
business, for professionals. It's much like if we jump back up our stack here to the notion of what is beauty and harmony and simplicity. I'll go to one tiny rabbit hole, which is I was at a summit series in Baja this last week. Um, some great speakers were there. Scott Galloway, who I've always loved, brilliant, brilliant mind. But there was a gentleman there. I cannot remember the name of his company, but he effectively has built a hybridized learning platform that does use AI. And his promise is, first of all, the primary foundation is culture, the world, our technology shifted completely, and our traditional means of teaching kids doesn't work anymore, and kids don't want to learn that way, and they don't learn that way. So his promise is you can learn everything you need to know in a 2 hour a day sprint, and they've gamified the process. And he goes in, shows the evidence and how they do it. And when you talk to kids, you're like, "What do you want to do?" And they're like, "Well, we want to play. We don't want to go to school. We don't want to learn." But what he did is he flipped it around and said, "Well, what if?" And they worked with high risk kids who are scoring the lowest in everything as their test bed because that's where they got the most support. Society and the education system had basically thrown them out, brought them in, and in months they would improve so much they were outperforming their peers. But basically, they'd do the education AI enhanced system that was gamified, and the result was they got to play games after that. But they just incorporated a lot of play, and they gave them a goal and a focus. And he said the number one objection, the number one challenge they have, the number one thing that prevents it from working is the parents saying it can't work and I didn't learn that way, so my kid isn't going to do it. So it's the attachment to, someone says you have to go through my pain in order to get what I have. And, I've got a 22-year-old. I've lived through the rejection of the past, just like any other parent does. But I found it to be a really profound shift. But I think what we can examine here is I think every one of our traditional systems, whether it's medicine or how we're engaging and finding our purpose, I think there's always fundamental truths about our base psychology, but society's expression of those are going to be different, and technology changes everything. I think that's getting back to AI. Um, you know, Learning how to ask really great questions and have great questions asked to you um,
Yeah.
makes for a better life.
Yeah. But I haven't seen any system-wide change in education since I was in education.
Yeah.
And the reason is because there's no system.
Oh.
You can't
Hmm.
have system-wide improvement if there's no system.
Hmm.
You can have breakout progress on the part of individuals, and there's probably you know gatherings of people like workshops that we go to, the masterminds we go to. That's breakout learning. I mean, you're getting very distilled, great stuff, in short period of time. And but I was thinking in my podcast yesterday, I told a little bit of a history of my childhood growing up. And I
Hmm.
said, no, now that I think about it, I had three great schools that I attended simultaneously. Okay. And the first one was the farm I grew up on, where because of my birth order, I didn't have to do the heavy field work. I did the housework with my mother, but then I had to run, everything was done by noon, and I could go out and I could explore the fields and the woods. And I had, I was like a dog patrolling my territory. I went here, here, checked out that this is right, this is good, did
Hmm.
that every day. And then at a certain point, I crossed the fence and went into the neighbors' fields, the neighbors, and then I explored one day and I was in five separate woods. All I had to do was go across a fence line because the woods had joined each other, and I just
Oh,
had
yeah.
and everything else, and that was great. So that was my first school. That happened every day.
Yeah.
The second one was that my father, during the winter season, because he didn't farm, he worked at a truck line. And this was
Oh, yeah.
in Norwalk, Ohio. And so when 3 o'clock came and I was off school, I would go down to the truck line for 2 hours until my dad got home and drove me 6 miles home. And I just get this, Mike. Think about uh, what I'm going to say in today's legal environment. I could
Uh-huh.
walk the docks. I could walk the docks as a 7 and 8 year old. I could walk, and uh, and I knew at 4 o'clock I had to be by the Dr. Pepper machine because Mr. Ernsthausen, who created the truck line, was there, and he always bought me a Dr. Pepper.
Yeah.
And so I would ask him, "How'd you create all this, Mr. Ernsthausen?" And he would tell me. And then in 1953, so I was 9 years old, um, Norwalk Truck Line was the largest independently owned truck line in the world. You had 800 trucks, and they went all the way from Boston to St. Louis. Okay, 800 trucks, and it was just the headquarters was this small town. So I'd go and I'd look at the maps, I'd talk to the dispatchers, and that was my school number two. Had the farm, I had the truck line, and then we had great libraries, the great library in the town, and it was Carnegie Library. Do you know the Carnegie libraries?
Yeah.
Yeah, he built, he supplied
Wow.
all the architectural support for this Andrew Carnegie, who created U.S. Steel, and he funded 2,500 libraries in the United States, Canada, UK, and Ireland. Okay, and they're you can't tear them down. They're great libraries. And then they had reference library in the Big Britannica Encyclopedia, and I would go in and I'd read. That was my internet surfing in those days. That was
That was mine too. That was mine. That's the same thing. So think
yeah.
about how many
So
years
I
apart
had
that
I had
was.
the farm, I had the truck line, and then between that, I had to go to a formal school in which I was gradually knowing more than the teachers
Yep.
and good people. I mean, I have no complaint against anything 1 to 12. I have no complaint about anything. They taught me how to read, they taught me how to write, and enough arithmetic to know cash flow when I see it.
Yes. Yep. That's right. That's right. I looked at that. We're so identical in that way. Now, my little distinction was it started with encyclopedia, and we had the Collier's encyclopedia, I believe, at home, which were worse. Like the Britannica was much better. But
Britannica
it's
is
what,
that was the
yeah.
gold standard. Yeah.
But that's what the poorer people had, and if you had them in your house, and then I fell in love with microfiche. That was the next internet. So the concentration and being able to look at these, and I was always scheming, how am I going to get a microfiche machine of my own? Um, and if we tie this back to what we started with in the conversation, I was interviewing Dr. Bookout and just getting into like her growth and progress, where she's gotten her inspiration, and it's been in a pursuit of knowledge. So she came from a tough background with no extras, just a lot of complicated family dynamics,
Yep.
and no bonus rounds, right? Nothing extra. She worked her ass off, but she learned early on that it was knowledge, the pursuit of knowledge, and learning that knowledge that has driven her all this time. And that's when I got to turn on my Dan Sullivan operating system. And I said, for what? What has all this knowledge done for you? And, she looked at me and I said, adding capabilities. It's capabilities that create confidence. And that's where, so
Then you
just
have higher commitments and you have more courage. Uh,
back to the four C's.
uh,
And that was,
lather, rinse, relather.
yep. And again, millions of dollars in her case for all the certifications, the education, and but what the best investment we'll ever make. And going back, if I bridge what you were talking about, walking through the woods as a youngster from farm to school to the real education, which took place sipping a Dr. Pepper, which is engaging and asking
Talking,
adult
talking
questions.
to the owner of the largest independent trucking company in the world. Yeah.
Whose ambitious delivery is our libraries of all the things, which circles back. That's at least where my brain went when I was listening to that story. I'm like, okay, there's some commonalities here. So
Yeah.
why don't we
Well, here's
bring,
the thing. Here's the
yeah,
thing. I have my new book, quarterly book coming out on first week of December. So it comes out and it's called You Are a Timeless Technology. Okay.
yes.
And what I'm contending that the way you go about putting things together is one healthcare system. The way I go about putting things together is another healthcare system. And what's
Hmm.
happening, the system is now in the individual. The individual is not in the system.
Expand on that just a little bit more. Let's end this with the clarifying statement and bridging it back to the book, because I think we'll time this
Yeah,
with the
well, it has to do with the notion that everybody should have equal health care. And I said, we already do. It's called no health care. We have complete equality of no health care. The only level that you can establish equality is at the basis of not having it. Okay, absolute poverty. So the wonderful thing, I mean, we saw Robert Kennedy,
Yep.
you know, at Free Zone or at a Genius Network, and kind of a tortured guy. I got to say,
Oh yeah.
seeing your uncle assassinated, seeing your father in front of your eyes assassinated, I think can probably throw a curve at a 15-year-old, and he had, and not the simplest family to grow up in, and and everything else. And he went through drugs, and he went through, all the distractions you kind of have, but an admirable character. I find him very, very admirable. And
Hmm.
now essentially, as I understand the U.S. government, he's put in head of everything that looks like healthcare in the United States, or should look like healthcare. It's actually disease management, and he's making a shift. He's working for a president who plays for keeps. He's working for a president who doesn't take prisoners.
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean, Trump just got, I mean, he's just got a clear path, you know, I suspect his golf handicap is not going to improve over the next 4 years.
Yeah.
It's too big an opportunity.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's had 4 years to do all the experience transformers that he needs about who to trust and how do you proceed.
Yeah.
Um, I
I
mean,
think that is
everything that,
that to me is the big distinction. The biggest distinction of all is when you look at the layers, and we're gonna go way in depth in that. And we've got another episode coming up that's
yeah.
gonna
So
really dig into.
What'd you get from this? So,
Um,
um, I'm
so I
just
took
sticking to the notion that the system is inside you. You're not inside the system. I think that's my great breakthrough thought for this podcast. I'm going to work on that. I like that.
yeah, I love it. I think I came back to like my big takeaway is about the purpose, the reason why. I'm looking at the why behind the why behind the why, and giving yourself a bigger, better reason to live is going to motivate you to pursue every technology, every tool possible to give you an unfair advantage. And I'd say combined with your mention, which is you have to take your own responsibility and synthesizing, integrating. And when we were just talking about our journey on moving to a meat diet and how what kind of impact it's had, which is counter to what we were taught for years. You know, if you remember the old stack of the food groups and the nutrition scale, which we all know now is basically a bunch of crap. Um, uh,
A lot of bread, a lot of pasta, a lot of
yeah, yeah. I think Wonder paid for some of that, but I'm excited about how all these things are happening at once, and I'm really excited about getting the big business at least exposing them. I think the if there's anything, then that's something we didn't go down the path of is there's going to be a massive level of exposure, and RFK talked about this over the next couple of years that I think we're going to be able to bring an enormous amount of necessary shame that will not create a destruction of trust, which we've seen inside media, but an understanding of what is real. And then when you combine AI testing, all these tools and resources, and AI can synthesize the tests, and we're going to be able to see into the future a lot faster at a glance. And with all the data we're acquiring from our bodies, we're just going to understand what's going to work without having to live through the pain and the iteration of time. We're entering into collapse time, and all this knowledge. I'm just so optimistic and excited about the future, which gives me even more reason to want to stay alive.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. That statement was worth another 10 years.
yeah, thanks. Well, let's bring this around and we'll do the usual close, which is this is Capability Amplifier with the amazing genius wisdom of Dan Sullivan from Strategic Coach. If you are not a member, the single greatest investment you'll make in yourself every year towards accelerating all of the C's, which is your confidence and your courage and your commitment. And what else, Dan Sullivan?
Capability.
That's right. And
And
that's why we have Capability
you
Amplifier.
want to amplify your capability.
So you've spent your time in the right place at the right time with us, and we're looking forward to seeing you in another episode soon. And please share this episode with anyone you know. Thank you for listening. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.